It was at night, but it's something that drove her body. When she came closer to the river, she heard a lot of people singing a song. This song, it was a favorite song. And when she was drawing near to the river running, she was hearing this song from many people singing it. And then she jumped into the water. Boom! Inside. These snakes were yellow in color. And then when it crawls over their body, there's priests in that temple. In this video, I will actually be dealing with Satanism in African spirituality. A lot of what is actually being deemed as African spirituality practices of beliefs today, it's not really African, but it's actually things that were adopted from other parts of the ancient worlds. This is Apostle Nicholas Mbanjwa. Welcome to my channel. Make sure to subscribe for more of content like this. So here it's not necessarily like a stepmother, it's because of she's my father's legal wife. So my father had me outside of his marriage. Blessed be God, this woman never put that against me. She actually accepted me home. It's a smooth slope from where I come from, Mzimkhulu. It's a place called Lekukwini. In case some of you who would be listening would know it, so that you can actually relate with the story because it's known. In this smooth slope, this is where our village is, or homestead. So this is where the houses are built. This is my home. It's a beautiful place. And then it sort of has like a valley. Down this smooth slope, there's a dam. So this dam is actually a small dam, about a size that can actually fit just an entire taxi with no space for another car. So I'm talking about the South African taxi. I'll bring in the picture for those who are actually outside of our country who actually have a different name for what is actually called a taxi. This is actually a quiet, still, small dam. Nothing spectacular. And then a particular incident took place at one time. From a house that is about 10 yards away from my home, a boy child, this boy began to actually run quickly, as fast as possible, like something is chasing him. And then a lot of people who were there were so amazed because they were just seated with this guy in a hut, in this hut house. So when seated, he just began to run. And then everyone actually began to run after him. And then people were actually screaming, "What's going on? What's happening?" And we ran a distance of about, I would think it's about 500 meters. This boy began to dive into this dam. Boom, inside. So a lot of people actually began to be scared to follow and then dive into this dam. I know a lot of white people would have just jumped in. But with blacks, there's a lot of things that are happening right here in Africa. Because a lot of people know, even those who are civilized and urban places, that rivers here are not empty, but they have their own owners who are creatures that possessed spiritual or supernatural powers. Like this power that was able to pull out a boy sitting in his home with his family to run and then just jump into this dam. So they called it divers. After hours, divers came. When divers came, they dived into this dam. And when the divers dived into this dam, they came out frightened and they said, "There's nothing we can do. We're so sorry." They began to describe that there's a creature that has him. It is actually holding him. So I presume that the creature has something like hands according to the description. And they said that it has huge eyes and we are scared. We cannot do anything. It seems as if he is still alive in the hands of this creature. A lot of you would be doubting because you'd say a person cannot survive hours in water. Please hold on. Sorry for the nose block again. So in this incident is that my mother, who's Mdala, this dear woman, my father's wife. So my mother was actually among the people. So women in the area decided, I don't know if it was culture, because this is not the first time I know such incidents. I come from even an upbringing as far as from my mother's side in Eastern Cape where I knew such things. But I heard in this particular incident that the women actually slept around just a semicircle of the dam. On the one end, not the other end, just on one end of the dam around there. So they had blankets over the night, and my father told of that incident when his wife was not home that entire night. And then it is explained by my mother. She was actually reiterating this story for me because everyone knew about it. How that at night around exactly 12, something remarkable took place. And then a rain began to actually rain just in that dam, around them only. Because my father expressed that they did not have any rain, which is actually the entire homestead around that dam. There was no rain. It was only to their side, the rain. And then my mother explains that from then on, there was a heavy mist that covered the dam. And then with the mist, they saw waves, like the dam began to move in waves. So they were scared. They began to move forth. But I'm telling you, women are so brave. With especially African women are so brave, man. The water began to actually bring out this body, the body of this young man, and then he came out and he was dead. Now, I would be hearing something that was not new, but it's been retold over and over again in my life. Where the boy came out, a lot of Africans will actually comment on the comments for people who are in the United States, because some of you guys there, some people who follow us are from the US and other parts of the world, so they will hear these testimonies there, how that these things happen here in Africa. It's not just with us. And then the boy's body came out. The funny part is that the entire body was fine except for just one part, that the brains were actually sucked out of his nostrils. So he came out with a body that had no brain and it had no blood. It was bloodless. No blood. But the entire body is not eaten or bruised. It is fine. Bloodless without brain as well. In this incident, I want to draw your attention to something. I'm going to be talking about something that no one ever talks about on YouTube. This is going to be the first of its kind. So now, the boy came out and then he was buried by the parents. Do you know, I want to tell you something. With Africans have a powerful connection with water or marine spirits. Any source that actually belongs, whether in the sea, in a dam, in a river, it is actually a higher principle when it comes to the spiritual realm, specifically in ancestry worship. I want to tell you that. No African will deny that. The Now people is the type of ubungoma where I went to. In most of the videos I've been retelling the story that I took in Vumagu for ubungoma before I was saved. So with my spiritist mother, she had Intlombe. Intlombe, it was during that time when she was about to actually cross to graduate from being Itwasa to Ikosi and then to become Umakosi. So from white now to red. So in that time, before one actually can graduate, one has to be initiated. But now for Amanda, with the house I was in, it's a house of water. The initiation takes place in the very same place where I grew up in, which is actually called Ndumdum, a Mount Aleph. This place, there's a river that crosses as far as from Mount Aleph, and then it goes as far as Mount Frere on the Eastern Cape. So this river is called Umzimvubu. It is mysterious. There's never been a river like this before. As a young boy growing up there, I heard stories of many people who were actually taken by the waters. Some people would just begin to dive in. The same incident like the story I told you, move from home and run, dive into the water. And when they come out of the water, the entire body is fine. It's not bruised, it's not hurt. The only thing that's missing is blood and the brain. And then they come out without blood and the brain. That's the only thing that happens. Now therefore, my spiritist mother, when she was about to cross over to be Umakosi, when she was graduating from Itwasa, which is a newly initiate. So this is like the second stage before the third final stage of being a Ukobela. So this is the second stage now. So it happened at night when they were doing Intlombe. She tells us, she told my mother vividly. I was not there because she had been a Sangoma by this time. I was around the ages of 14 for 14 years. I think before I was even born. And then she says, when they do Amakubi, they beat the drums. And then they do. And she says something took over her during her ritual. And then it was at night. So the ritual would take place the entire night. And then she just ran away. Ran out of the house. She tells us that she was unconscious. She did not even know what was happening or what took her. She did not know, but it's something that drove her body. And then she ran and ran and ran. And she tells my mother and I that when she came closer to the river, she heard a lot of people singing a song. This song, it was a favorite song. Ethi webaba ngahlupheka ezweni. I'm not a good singer. I was like, webaba ngahlupheka ezweni, webaba ngahlupheka ezweni, and then they would do these beats. She had the song. This song, it was the song that was sung in the ritual, and when she was drawing near to the river running, she was hearing this song from many people singing it, and then she says she jumped into the water. Boom. Inside. Ladies and gentlemen, this is truth. I am not telling you lies. This is spiritual things that happen in Africa. She spent 3 days and 3 nights inside Umzimvubu, within the waters, since she left that night, until she would actually be taken out, and then on the 3rd day, 3 nights and 3 days in the water. So here now, this is where I want to say Satanism in African spirituality. She said to me, I remember there was one time when I told you of a dream I had concerning the water snake coming to me, and she said to me, no, never do that again. We were in the chamber. It's called a sacred chamber, where she actually does the rituals and then she heals the people. It's the place which is called the sacred place, the sacred chamber for sangomas. She said to me, no, like there's people listening to us. That's how she was so afraid. She said, no, don't ever call that a snake. Don't ever say a snake. Like, she's afraid that there's people listening to us say this. And then I was well aware that she's speaking about these spirits that are actually over us and around us at that time when I was not saved. Then she says, never ever call her. Never ever call it Inyoa, call it umkhulu, because that is a higher principle ebungomeni in the sangomas, the witch daughters of South Africa. It's a higher principle. It also falls alongside with mermaids, but they're different in how they created, but it's there. And then I was so interested right there. My mother was also there, my spiritist mother. And then wonderfully, I asked her. So my mother and I come from the same area, from the Eastern Cape. Hence, she went to the river that is just the river that is a main river on my mother's side, Mount Elif. Sorry about the nose block again. I asked her to say, so what happened there? She laughed and she said, there are people under the water. There's life under the water. There's mountains. There's everything. Now, I do not believe all of that. My mind tells me, I don't know why, that she must have been taken under the water, yes. Like the boy who was taken under the water. These things are able to protect you, that you can breathe and live without you actually suffocating, because they have spiritual powers. As much as they are able to pull you from your home to them, they actually have powers as well to protect people under the water. There are people that come back, there are people that do not come back. So she shared. So I believe that it must have been a vision when this thing has her in her. Maybe this thing had her for the entire 3 days like that. She must have had visions that she saw. These visions might have shown her things, because come on, the devil is unable to create anything. These visions must have been able to actually make her see mountains, people. But she said she was given food, and the food there down there is nice. I do not know about that. So bear with me, guys, because I was actually trying to reach out. I reached out to a particular ex-sangoma, but I realized that the lady must have not gotten underwater. Many say they go to water only to find that it's like baptism when they're going for when they're about to be graduated from one stage to another. It's more like for them, it's just like they are baptized. They don't really go that way. So it's different houses. Even though they are Ndawas, some do that. But the house where I came from did it differently. You would go really underwater. It's called Oguparulwa. So I was also told that I was going to go there. Though my spiritual mother had a heavy heart, because she told me it's so dangerous. I think she's speaking from experience. She says there's 50% of chances that you might come back and 50 chances that you might not come back. And then she explained what she began to explain, which I won't actually explain because it's not part of this video. When she explained, she told me, and then I asked her, what is it that they told you? She said each one who actually goes has a message and an assignment they are given. One message that you should be told. And she said, don't worry, when your time comes, you will be told your message. You go there to get this message. And then I asked her then, because she had told me, you don't say it's a snake anymore, you say it's umkhulu, that creature which is under the sea there, which is under the sea or the rivers or the dams. And then I asked her and I said, so did you see umkhulu? She says yes. And then she gave me that look of like, it's terrifying. And then I asked her, how terrifying was it? And then she said to me, when you say umkhulu, we're speaking about the snake. And then she said to me, you can see that it's unnatural. You can see that it's unnatural when you look at it. But something is upon you that like seizes your mind, that you cannot freely express yourself, that you cannot freely be awakened. It's like there's some dizziness that takes a hold of you, that you cannot really think clearly or see clearly, but you can see it. And when you see it, and I asked, does it speak? And she said, yes, it speaks. And then I says, could you hear it? And she says, I had an interpreter. They will interpret for me under the water whatever it said to me. But you can be afraid, but though there's this thing that holds you back, like yes, there's fear, but it holds you, like you're not fully 100% conscious. He says, because I think that's how they protect us, because it hates fear. A lot of people, there's been stories of children taken underwater, and then instead of the parents bringing in cows, it's a brown cow, stuff like that. Many people would find like parents would cry. When they say the parent would cry, those things sometimes would actually kill the child without even eating the child, like drinking the blood or the brains, like I told you, but just striking the child to death and then tossing the body out out of anger. So they hate fear, they hate tears. That's what I heard. So when person is taken under the water, no one is supposed to cry, no one is supposed to actually make noise in the family or things like that, until the person comes back. So in this story, therefore, I began to understand something terrifying with my friend who was also part of Amanda. My friend once dropped this to me to say, my friend, you and I are doomed for hell. And I said, my God, what are you saying? Remember that I began to study the Bible before I even went for Rubunda when I was 14. I began to study when I was 12. This guy says, where have you ever heard of a heaven that is underwater? That thing condemned me so much. It made me realize how that the same creature that is called Umkulu and the same creature that is a principal in the spiritual world of Africans, of African spirituality, you can deem it. It is the same creature that can take people, wives, husbands, boys, girls, and then begin to drink their blood and suck out their brains. And is the same thing that is also again worshipped and is also venerated as a higher principal or principality. You should understand, therefore, that African spirituality is really satanistic, because anything in our Bible, we know that our God only demanded the blood of animals for the purpose that an innocent animal would be punished for your sins, not for your sacrifice. No human was ever sacrificed, because Jesus himself, when he was sacrificed on the cross, it was with the promise that he would actually resurrect, not that anything dies. It is not for the greed of God that he will be wealthy, endued with power, endued with gifts, abilities. It is not like that. But it is for just one single purpose, that God actually wants to forgive the sins of mankind. So today, what is called God sacrifice with the Son is different. God did that for the love of people. When people today are doing it, sacrificing their children, daughters, sons, wives, husbands, fathers, it is increasing today. It is increasing because people need more money, need power in business, need more influence, need all of these things and connections, tenders and stuff. They are sacrificing for their own greed. It was different that God did. And God did it once with the Son, and then he came back to life, and then it was never done again. And the second aspect you should understand is that the will of Jesus was involved. That's why he says, Lord, your will, not mine. He had to submit under God. When he said this, it showed which he is submitting, because under that case, he had power to say no. He had power to, he was not forced. It was out of his own volition and his cooperation. Today, people sacrifice their sons without their cooperation. It's a different thing. It's satanistic. So this same creature that does this, that gives people the initiation, the power, the process, the messages, and empowers them. Amanda, who come from the river, who are the principal things in African spirituality, or the marine spirit, this principality in the marine kingdom. It is the same thing that eats blood, drinks people's blood, and takes away their brains. And at the same time, people see nothing wrong with African spirituality. They just hallow it. I actually tried to find, I'm looking for one Sangoma who will be bold enough to actually come. I've never went underwater, because I got saved just before I would even go through the process of Utwasa, when I had just done Mvumagufa. I got saved. So I'm looking for a person who's saved, who's willing to reveal this, who went underwater, not those who just go and be baptized before they graduate. No, I mean who went and lived. Like my sister in spirit, my sister, spiritist sister back then. from the same house. She went for an entire 24 hours underwater. The spirits didn't come and collect her, so they had to take her. My spiritist mother as well as the spiritist brother, I know her. She told us of her experience, and now she went before I would even begin. And then when she was taken underwater, and she was taken willfully with the senses out, she said it was the most dangerous thing they did. And she said, Wuti, it was thanks to my spiritist mother, because that woman saved her life. She would have died there. So it's another story for another day maybe. So I was looking for someone who's actually willing. Even if you're a Christian, you've went through this process underwater, and then I can even hide your face if you are willing. That we don't reveal who you are, we don't reveal your face, we just hide, and then you begin, we do an interview. I do an interview with you, you confess, and then you tell me the thing that happens there. I know there's never been a video like that, because I just want to expose the kingdom of darkness, and I want to show people how powerful our God is. On top of that, I want to show you something. What I want to say, it's just going to be concluding this video. It's going to make you realize it's either what we call African spirituality, something that is actually derived from other nations, or it's either all the nations that had these pagan practices took this from the same source. You're going to conclude like that. I want to show you this. The Bible says, and to the angel of the church in Pergamos, that is Revelation, we being about Revelation 2 verse 12, it says, and to the angel of the church in Pergamos write, this thing says he who has the sharp two-edged sword. Pergamos, the word means pe and gamos. Pair means mixed and gamos marriage. So this church is what is actually known today by many scholars as the compromising church. Today in South Africa, there's so much rise of African spirituality that children are made to actually compromise in their faith in order to please their mothers and their ancestors. As well as many people are caused to compromise in the church because of what a brother of mine spiritually would call the haves and the have-nots, because of what you have and do not have. Because some people are feeling that they are Christians for a long time, things are blocking, nothing is moving, and they are told, Pasha, speak to your ancestors, everything will be fine, then you'll go back to Christianity. And hence we have Christians that compromise the Pergamos church. And a lot will actually go to the church today by utwala. Some actually do utwala unaware, and some do it aware. They go to this sangomas, give them motive for businesses, they come out strong and then begin to have lucrative businesses, or a lot of money is coming, and a lot have sugar daddies coming, going to sugar daddies who they do not even understand where they get money from. And then after sex they begin to realize what they are unable to actually produce children, or maybe they have problems in relationships. After that they are unable to keep guys, or maybe they have financial issues just after they slept with this man. It was a person that they had a relationship who is actually coming from the world. So they are Pergamos, they are compromising. If the church would stay purified from fornication and these things, it would be protected from all these dangers. So the church today is compromising because of haves and have-nots. Hence, that is why people need to understand that true prosperity begins with a relationship from Jesus. You cannot measure Jesus with money. He is more than that. You might have him, but you might not have money. That's how powerful our God is. And you might have money and not have a good relationship with him. That is not true prosperity. Therefore now, Jesus says to this church, South Africa, he's saying the same thing to it. Pergamos, the compromising church in South Africa. This thing says he who has the sharp two-edged sword. Some will say, hey, I will do my ancestors. We worship both God and the church. In South Africa today, they say they're mixing. Compromising church. I know your works and where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. So anciently, according to Sir William Ramsay, when he went to actually study the archaeology of these churches, he discovered that the interesting part about this city of Pergamos is that it actually had the altar of Zeus. It was believed by the ancient Greeks. You know what Zeus is, the chief goddess of the Greeks. And he's one of the chief even in different nations. So he had an altar in Pergamos, and it was believed that he was one of the chief gods there, and he was born in Pergamos. That's important. I'm about to show you something. What we call African spirituality does not really start with us. And you hold fast my name and did not deny my faith, even in the days in which Antipas was my faithful martyr. Antipas died for the gospel. It's a whole lot of story. How that he was put into the bull of Zeus, which is called Taurus. This bull right in the city of Pergamos. It was bent to be hot red, and then he was made to boil inside. And the ancient early church fathers say, with singings and with prayers, he died, glorifying God. Who was killed among you where Satan dwells? So here, God said Satan dwells, which also means that there's a throne of Satan. So Satan, you realize that he has locality. He is not like God. He cannot be in one place all over. If you have 10 believers who say, yesterday Satan came to me, 9 is lying, 1 is telling the truth, because he cannot be everywhere at once. So he had actually a dominion or a stronghold in this city, the devil. He had authority in the city. You'll understand if you study its history, because when a lot of idolatry moved and a lot of worships moved and practices moved from Babylon, they actually went to Rome, but through Pergamos, because Pergamos was the center between Rome and Babylon. So a lot of priests from Babylon, during when Cyrus conquered Babylon, they moved to Pergamos. That is where every worship of Babylon was. So no wonder Satan's dominion was there. It says, I have a few things against you, O compromising church. Jesus speaks. Because you have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam. Balaam says you can eat things sacrificed to idols. You can have fornication. It's what is happening in the church today. It's fine. They can cohabit as much as they want. They can sleep with any boyfriend. They can sleep with someone they are not married to. Who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality? Sexual immorality and eating things sacrificed to idols is the same things. Unless you're eating something, a meat you are given that was sacrificed to idols or ancestors you did not know of, God will protect you. But eating it with knowledge, the Bible condemns that. We are not supposed to partake when people call us into our family gatherings, and when they do this ancestral worship, and then they spill out blood and then give us this meat. No. Thus you have those that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. Now, I want to tell you more about the church of Pergamos and then close. The church of Pergamos, it's important for you to know that there was actually an institute here that was venerated. One of the most venerated and worshipped God in Pergamos was actually called Asclepius. Asclepius, as I will actually show you in the picture there, is actually believed to be a god of healing, a god of health. So Asclepius, his worship began in Epidaurus, and Epidaurus is another place in Greek. So this place was actually near the ocean. So this is where it is believed that Plutus, a god of wealth, came to Asclepius. He was a normal human being. He became a god after his death. That is what Greeks say. So Plutus, the god of wealth, came to him when he was still alive. So Asclepius had 2 daughters. One is called Panacea, and the other is actually called Hygeia. Panacea was actually well endowed with the ability to heal people through herbs. This is where we get the word pharmacy, Panacea in Greek. Pharmacy. I'm not saying using pharmacy as a Christian is wrong. I'm trying to show you something. And then we have the daughter who's also called Hygeia, from where we get the English word hygiene, which means health. She was believed to actually be the one powerful, and then she had a snake in her hand. The idol has a snake in her hand, and she is believed to be actually the one who used to clean people through purifying them by water. Even to this day, whenever her statue is erected, there is a bowl of water. So she is connected with water in cleansing. What today in South Africa would be known as Unomohoi, the goddess of cleansing and purity. Unomohoi comes from this, because Nomohoi, if it clicks with Xhosa, Uguhoya means to care and treat, which also means hygeia, like hygienic. So which is this? So Plutus, the goddess of wealth, was taken, cleansed by the sea, the same thing that Africans do, which believes in cleansing, and then brought into the temple. So this worship moved from Epidaurus and went to be the center of the center of Babylon in Rome. It then was in this city, which is actually called Pergamos. What I want you to understand is that Asclepius actually had a stick. It has a snake that winds, or that is around The snake is actually around this staff or rod, the snake of Asclepius. Do not make a mistake, because there is Hermes' rod. Hermes' rod is different, because Hermes' rod actually has double snakes that are around a staff that actually has wings. It's different. Both, many of them, sometimes this one would be used in medicine, but for the Greeks, Hermes represented commerce. He was the god of thieves, merchants, gamblers, and traders. This other one, Asclepius, was the god of healing. Hence, about a few hundreds of years later, when they would come Hippocrates. Hippocrates is actually called the father of medicine. Hence, you hear there's a Hippocratic oath. He was a worshipper of Asclepius. Back then, in the years when anyone was taught in the art of Hippocrates to heal people through the methods of Hippocrates, would actually make the Hippocratic oath. Do not worry if you're a doctor who is a Christian, because it's amended now. It's no longer like then where you pledged allegiance to the gods. It's no longer like that. So please don't say, hey, medicine is bad as Christians, because a lot of you will die and go to heaven. I know a lot of Christians that depend on medicine. Now, I want to draw your attention to this. In Pergamos, where Asclepius was worshipped, there was many pictures of gods, like the god of Ouranos. Ouranos was the god of dreams, and his brother. They were twins. One was believed to bring sleep, which is actually the one who's actually called a hypnos. Hypnos from the word hypnotizer, when they hypnotize your doctors. And the one was Ouranos, which is believed to bring dreams, from the word dreams. So these are two gods. So I'm about to bring to you to an attention of what is called Amatongo namadlozi in South Africa, so that you understand the difference. Amatongo in South Africa are actually believed to be spirits that speak to people. They can be messengers, like people would think they would be like angels, that how others would explain. Others would call the dead people who speak through dreams, they say Amatongo, while amadlozi, they are different than Amatongo. So Amatongo, they are involved so much when it comes to dreams, bringing of dreams, speaking messages through dreams. Sangomas that dream a lot, Amatongo. When you go to Pergamos, you were a person who was sick, they would actually take you to the temple of Asclepius, which is the god of healing. When you go to the god of healing, the first thing they would do, they would actually play music, the same thing that Izangoma do today. And then when you fall asleep, and then do things that would actually cause you to fall asleep, according to the god of hypnos, which is to hypnotize. And then when you fall asleep, they would then come out a snake. These snakes were yellow in color. A yellow snake today is actually believed, when you dream it, if you're a Sangoma person who goes under this ritual of Sangomas, it's a snake of luck. So it was believed back then in the Greeks, it would come and crawl over your body. And then when it crawls over the body, there's priests in that temple, and then there's a doctor in the temple. So the priests are the bridge between the realm of the spirit and the natural realm. So what they did is, the priest would actually hear the sounds of the hissing snakes, and then believe now to begin to interpret this, which is today called in South Africa amalozi, where the people that can actually see in the spirit using whistles, amalozi. And then sometimes this priest would actually begin to ask the people who just woke out of the sleep the following day to say, what did you dream while the snake was around them? And then they would ask them, what did you dream? And then the person would begin to tell them, I dreamt this and this. And then they begin to mix in herbs and then give this person. Now, this would happen after they took the person to the cleansing and the bathing, which is called the ritual of cleansing today in South Africa, which every Sangoma and every Zionist prophet does to this day. And then they would actually invoke the spirit of Hygia, the daughter of Asclepius, the god of healing. They would actually invoke her to be the one involved in the cleansing, because she's believed to rejuvenate and cleanse people and their souls. The same way today it's believed to know Mohoi, the same goddess again. It's not a god, it's a goddess, not a feminine, not a masculinity, but a feminine a being, entity that is believed to actually be involved. Even here in South Africa, no Mohoi, the same way Hagi again. And then again they would take you there, and then after you sleep, after the dream, you would wake up and tell the priest what you dreamt. A lot of people who had dreamt snakes, they believed they would be healed instantly. The same way today in South Africa, when you dream a snake, they say Amatongo, do not be afraid, these are your gods, these are your ancestors. So it was the same thing in the Greeks. So now here's the challenging question. Do you see that in all these cultures, again, the name Pergamos back then in those days was believed to be the city of the serpent. It was also given that name, aka city of the serpent. Why? Because of these things came together out of there. Serpents were worshipped back then. Don't you see it ironic that even here in South Africa or in Africa we have the same thing where there's rituals of snakes, and snakes are actually represented to be closer to the gods or to the ancestors, or that the dead can actually, when you dream a snake, you see the ancestors through dreams. Don't you see it ironic? And isn't it interesting that the only place where a snake is actually derived as evil is only in the Bible, and all the known cultures, even as well as the Anatolians that actually venerated the snake and also called it, which is the god of healing. The Anatolians were the earliest settlers before even the Iranians took place, began to actually live in Iran today, which is actually known today as what we would call, which is known today as Iran. So these were the earliest settlers. They would also call Asclepius as the serpent. So don't you see it ironic that only the Bible will challenge this and say the serpent is evil, and then we see that the serpent is evil in Genesis, causing men to fall because the devil used it, and then from then on he's been keeping this symbol to himself until to Revelation 12, where the Bible calls him the serpent. Don't you see it ironic now? And on top of that, many people say, but it represents healing in Numbers 21 verse 8 to 9, when the people murmured against Moses in the wilderness, and then God brought in viperous serpents to actually kill them. And then people say, then God didn't heal them through a serpent. Isn't it positive there? No, it's never positive. Let me tell you something to show you that everything, even the worship of Asclepius, it was derived from this chapter of Numbers 21 verse 8 to 9. It is not actually coming from Babylon, but it's a Greek worship, because it's taken from the Greeks by the Romans and all the worlds, even as the Africans, what is deemed as African spirituality. I'll show you how. When Moses, the people of Israel, murmured against Moses in the wilderness, this was 1500 years BC, before Christ came on earth. And then the Bible says Moses, God being angry, caused the people to die. And then Moses came out and began to intercede, and God says, make a serpent of brass and then put it on top of a pole. Whoever looks will be healed. Now we know according to the revelation of the Old Testament that brass can sustain heat, and it has longevity than heat. It can stand with fire, which represents judgment, and a serpent represents sin. And this we could not understand. Jesus came in John 3 verse 14 to 15, and then the Bible tells us, it says, as the Moses raised the serpent, so shall it be for the Son of Man. Because why? That was a type of a prophecy of Jesus, that when he was a sin, when he would be seen upon the cross, he would actually be salvation for all men that have faith in him, those that behold him. So I hope that explains it. Now the interesting part is this. Asclepius is actually written to be a man who actually did live. Though there's myths, these are myths about him. They are not reality. Some of the things that were said, that he pretended to be a god, but then he was worshipped, we know. Because how do we know? Is that Homer Iliad in 900 BC wrote about him, that he was a man. Homer Iliad wrote some things about history as well. The Iliad, we know Homer Iliad, it is older than even our Bibles when they came out. It is older than them. Now the interesting part I want to show you is this. Asclepius actually lived in 1300 BC. Moses lived 1500 BC. So there's about 300 difference between Moses and him. So who came early? It's Moses. So scholars and a lot of researchers say that the idea of Asclepius actually having a stick and a rod or maybe a staff with a serpent curled around it, actually took this from Moses, with that all this actually began to spread over all the world. After 300 years when Moses lived, it had actually was known all over the world. It was a famous story that the Greeks as well as Asclepius actually began to adapt this and make it their own culture. Hence, therefore, we see that this was actually inspired by the biblical account, that all the nations of earth as well as the devil began to take part and take notice and take privilege of that. Take advantage of that people would actually begin to worship him through that. Do not forget to like and to subscribe, and also give on your comments below.